Well, ESCAP is the regional arm of the United Nations, and as the Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, covering 62 countries in Asia Pacific, it focuses on regional cooperation for inclusive and sustainable development. And the whole idea is to make sure that countries that have good development practices and development policies can share this with other countries so that they can help to accelerate the achievement of the Millennium Development Goals. So countries that are on track in the achievement of development goals could actually assist countries that are off track. And what we have seen is that many of the health-related Millennium Development Goals are still not achieved. In fact, in Asia Pacific, despite the fact that this is a continent where we have economic powerhouses like the China, the Japan, the Koreas, the ASEAN countries, middle-income countries, we also have some of the world's poorest people living in Asia Pacific. And therefore, it is home to about almost 600 million hungry people in the world. And closing this disparity gaps would be extremely important. So closing these development gaps. We also have, in fact, 70% of the world's population without access to clean water and sanitation living in the Asian region. So I would say that closing the development gaps as a strategy to close the health gaps would be critical, because the nature of illness and wellness are changing, and so are the systems that are evolving to deal with both wellness and the well-being of people. And at the end of the day, you cannot look at health without looking at the economic and social conditions under which people live. So that's something that we focus on. You know, at the end of the day, we need to strengthen our health systems, and we need to invest in our health systems. But having access is one thing, but at the end of the day, it has to be high quality, effective, efficient, but also affordable healthcare. And here it is unfortunate, but there is a gender gap, because what we have found is that even when you do have healthcare systems that are accessible, many of the women, especially in the rural areas, do not have the capacity to access them because they're not affordable, and because of many of the cultural constraints around issues of gender equality. And this is why I'm very concerned that in fact, in today's world where we have high technologies and capacities, we still have the issue of high rates of maternal mortality and lack of investment in terms of maternal health. And Asia, again, is again a continent that is tremendous wealth, but at the same time, we still have 250,000 women dying because of childbirth. And this is something that we can change through better investment in primary health care, in supporting affordable, high-quality, efficient healthcare systems, especially in the rural areas. Well, in an interconnected world, the fate of one is related to the fate of the other, and therefore we have to be prepared. I mean, the whole issue of preparedness to handle risks and vulnerabilities, and the need to build up like a resilience in our communities, in our families, in our people. These are all critical issues. So I do not really worry, because I think if you focus really on the fact that you need to have functioning systems, functioning healthcare systems, and functioning healthcare systems, if they are to deal with pandemics and crises, well, first of all, have to deal with the existing burden of health. And this means that you have to have systems that are operational, that are affordable, and you need to have a preparedness plan in order to address risks. But at the same time, what is critical is also to ensure that that you have a social protection system in place so that you deal not just with your own citizens, but you realize that in the current world, you need to look at cross-border issues, including that of international migration. Because the feature of our age, the feature of the 21st century is the fact that many people move around across borders. And many of these movements are related to employment. We do have the feature of international migration as part of a development strategy of both sending and receiving countries. But at the same time, there are many undocumented workers, and therefore it is critical that we have systems that are able to ensure that these people also have access to healthcare systems and to messages that are necessary. So not to leave anybody out with these messages, but also to emphasize strongly that health is not just the absence of illness, but is the presence of wellness. And therefore, there's this constant ability to build the resilience of communities so that when there is a pandemic, there's also already systems in place that can address the issue, both in terms of preparedness, but also in terms of resilience. All right, I think as the Under-Secretary General of the United Nations, covering Asia and the Pacific, we need to look at the development challenges facing the Asia-Pacific region. This, again, is a region where we have had tremendous economic growth, and we have been able to pull people out of absolute poverty. But at the same time, it is a region of deep disparities, and it is a region that has been affected by the financial crisis that converted itself into an economic crisis affecting the real economy. And in fact, based on data that I have, about almost 20 million people will be affected because of the export sector and also falling into new poverties. But Asia is also a region where we have had to reset and rebalance ourselves based on the financial crisis and the lessons learned from 1997. And what this means is that besides getting ourselves or focusing on globalization and being more integrated with the rest of the world, Asia has to look also at how can it begin to invest in itself a lot more in terms of regional connectivity. How do we use the stimulus packages from the economic crisis to respond to new possibilities within our own region? And this means investing in intra-regional trade. It means investing in rural infrastructure. We have neglected our rural sector, really looking at what I call an intermodal transport system that brings the least developed landlocked countries into a web of prosperity with the more prosperous coastal areas in Asia Pacific. It also means knowledge connectivity. It means really focusing also on the fact that we can share knowledge across the borders, but also that we are going to have a continent where people move across borders. So how do we coordinate on the area of international migration? How do we ensure that whilst we are faced with a climate change agenda, that we are able to build up a regional sustainable energy security framework and of cooperation so that we can have a new patterns of growth, a new quality of growth, including that of green growth and green technology. So there are many areas that I have focused on, but more important is also the fact that if we do want to focus on intra-regional trade, and if we do want to ensure that we have larger regional markets, then we need to invest in social protection in order to build up the consumer power of the emerging middle class and also of investing in the poor. Because at the end of the day, we cannot look at social protection just because we are investing in vulnerable groups. And to see it as a cost, we need to see it as actually an economic strategy of building up larger markets for our region. Because unless people have income security, they are not going to be a player in the market. And we need to have income security in terms of more decent work, but also in terms of a sense of deeper, larger social protection system where people feel that they have a system of security and safety nets throughout their whole cycle. Because besides looking at wealth generation, one of the strategies that I've been pushing is to look at wealth generation side by side with the management of risks and vulnerabilities. Because at the end of the day, we did not just face one crisis, we faced multiple crises that threatened to roll back many of the development gains. So in a sense, the economic crisis came on top of the food and the energy crisis, and of course of the challenges of natural disasters and of climate change. But at the end of the day, I believe that the characteristic of Asia is the fact that it has been able to turn every crisis into an opportunity.